What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. My guest today started in the wine industry. She and her husband built a great wine business, and when it came time to sell it, they learned about business brokerage for the first time. Sure enough, they ended up in that business, and they have grown tremendously. And especially in the last 3 years over COVID, they've grown through making some very strategic acquisitions. So I am very happy to welcome Jessica to the show today.
Thank you so much, Alice. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you because I think that a lot of CEOs out there are thinking about growing by acquisition, or maybe have even already done an acquisition. So it's definitely something that we want to touch on. But let's start by just tell us a little bit about your current company.
Yeah, so my current company, we are in the mergers and acquisition space. But what we do is we help prepare businesses for sale. So get them ready for exit through our one division called Exit Factor. And then when they're ready for exit, we pass them over to our other division, which is a business brokerage and M&A advisory firm called Transworld Business Advisors. And we're active in 3 states. We're active in Colorado, Texas, and Nevada.
Wow. All right. So we're going to talk about how you got to be in 3 states, but let's rewind back to the time when you were in the wine business. So I know you told me before we started that you actually studied international business, not wine. I mean, some people, especially around here in Northern Nevada and Northern California, the wine country is close by and people do go to school for that, right? At UC Davis and take those classes. But you got interested in wine and you had this wonderful wine business and with your husband. So that's always interesting to me also when couples work together, and then you sold it. So tell us a story starting from there.
Yeah. So we, like you said, my husband and I were working in Aspen, Colorado for a corporate company in 2008, 2009. We were backed by Lehman Brothers. So most people know how that story ends. And we decided we had a friend that had a really cool wine concept for a wine retail store and a wine brokerage business. So brokering really high-end expensive wines to collectors throughout the world. We were fortunate enough that he helped us start that model in a different market in Naples, Florida. We built that company over 3 years and grew it significantly. But like we were chatting in the green room before, is my thought was it would be so fun to taste wine all day, travel to all these locations, and it would just be fun. And it actually became really trying to drink all day, travel to all these locations. So we did hit burnout about 3 years into that business and decided to sell that business and return to some type of more professional services career. So we sold that business through a business broker. Didn't know they existed before this process. Didn't really know how to sell a business. We didn't know that was a thing, especially in small business. But we were introduced to the entire industry through that process. And we said, maybe this is our next step. This makes a lot of sense from our background in professional services, but we can also tie in our experience as entrepreneurs, building, growing, and selling our own company and help others do the same thing.
Yeah. So, all right, you thought business brokerage sounds like an interesting industry. Now what? What do we do?
Yeah. So I'm the research person. My husband's the person's like, oh, this is great. Let's go. Let's just do this. Right. And I'm like, all right, let's slow down. Let's do a little bit of research first. So we started researching the industry and we found that there was a movement towards either franchise operations or cooperative or collaborative organizations. So even though we represent still local businesses and we have a local market presence, you still need a national buyer pool, national resources. And to do that on your own starting up, we knew was going to be very cumbersome. So that was what our research showed us. And we decided instead of going the cooperative model, that a franchise model actually worked better for us. So that was our next step. So we started vetting different franchisors that were in the space of business brokerage. Back then and even today, it's a small group. It's about four different organizations. So vetted them to figure out which one was the best fit for us.
Yeah, and that is a process in and of itself, right? To really do your due diligence to figure out if you want to be part of a franchise because they obviously have some control, but they also offer some benefits. So that's great. All right, so here you are, you've joined this franchise and it's you and your husband. How do you go out and get your first deals?
Oh, so fun. So it was me, my husband, and my dog. And we started by literally walking around, knocking on doors, introducing ourselves to the business owners in our local market. So at that time, we bought franchises are broken into protected marketing territories. So we just have one territory, a database of about 10,000 businesses that we were going to market to. So we just started by
Now,
old
remind me
school.
what year this was, because you said
This
knocking on
was
doors.
Yeah, this was 2013. So it's not like that long ago, but yeah, we thought the best old school method was to just introduce ourselves. We moved back to Colorado. So we're in Denver. Had never lived in Denver before. We didn't know anybody. So we thought really the best way was to go into businesses and introduce ourselves as new business owners as well in the community and just be a resource. So that was how we got our first sale, our first client was through that just door knocking process of walking into businesses and introducing ourselves. The first year we did a lot of that. We did a lot of networking, a lot of community involvement. But it was funny because my degree was in international business, but I was really heavily focused in digital marketing and digital lead acquisition prior to this. And I was a little bit hesitant when the franchisor told me, "Hey, go knock on doors, go meet face to face with people." I was like, "Why can't I just pull them in off the internet?" But it ended up being and still is one of the best ways to meet business owners when they're going through sometimes a very emotional and challenging transition through their life. They want that relationship and that rapport. So that yeah, knocking on doors is how we got our first client.
Yeah, I love it. I think that we overlook this sometimes, that just getting out there and meeting people at their place of business. I mean, that doesn't apply to every kind of company, but for many companies, it absolutely does. And then networking in the community, doing community work, volunteering for a nonprofit, going to these networking events where other professionals are there, and you just start to meet so many people. Now you have this really wide network that you can start to leverage, and people get to know you and they know what you do, and it's really a healthy way to start. All right, so you do that. You obviously got some good business going, and then at some point you're saying to yourself, well, I can't do everything. I've got to run the company, right? And then
Yeah.
I've also got to go out and sell, and then I've also got to actually get these businesses sold, right? So did
Right.
you start by hiring other people to do the other things like getting the businesses sold, doing that research and all of that? Or did you start by going out and hiring some other salespeople? And maybe you're going to tell me that the franchisor had some ideas for you as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we actually started by hiring salespeople right away. And I think looking back for at least us, that was a mistake. We still weren't experts or professionals in what we were doing. And so to hire and train other people, even though the franchisor helped, wasn't the right move for us. So that first class of our sales reps, we call brokers, was not a good fit for our organization culturally, didn't really work out in the end. And we ended up resetting and parting ways with all of those. And then in 2014, we chose to focus on the back end operations. So we started with a part-time assistant that was eventually promoted to our full-time operations manager that was helping service our clients on the back end of the business that myself and my husband were bringing in. Really got our feet underneath of us, good foundation. And then in the beginning of 2015 was then when we restarted hiring salespeople.
Okay. And that is something I've heard before, right? The first sales hires did not work out, right? For
Yeah.
many, many different reasons. And especially because you're still trying to do the work and keep the business floating, uh, run the business, but then also keep the sales flowing in and keep the cash flow flowing in. And then you have to add to that training all of these
Yeah.
people. And then it's hard to hire people. And like you said, they just really weren't a good fit. So that, that's a difficult situation. All right. So you let them go and, regrouped and came back. And then how did you figure out how to do it better?
Yeah. So one, we knew how to run our process better. We knew how to sell what we were selling better. We did, with our franchisor, have a really comprehensive training program. And I think the biggest thing is that the lesson we learned through that was what type of person was going to be a good fit for our organization. So culture, yes, really big and important in our organization, that someone fits our culture and values. Our culture is what we call collaboratively competitive. So we're in a sales organization. We are competitive, but we still collaborate and work together.
Yeah.
So that was important. But also, we in our business, our brokers and our salespeople are 1099 commission only salespeople. And what I had to learn and what we found is that there is a subset of salespeople that want those roles, right? Because it's uncapped. You can make a lot of money. You have a lot of flexibility and freedom in that career, but it's a smaller subset than sales professionals that want W-2, base plus commission, more stable. So we learn to be patient in the vetting process and waiting for those right individuals to appear. It's again smaller subsets. So like before, when we were hiring, we put out a job post, we get 25 applications. Now with the new restructure, we get 5, right? And of those 5, how many fit our culture and our values? Maybe 1, right? So it was all about patience in the beginning. And in the beginning, it's funny when I talk to my colleagues, they look at us now and we have 59 brokers on the team now. And they're like, you're huge. How did you get there? But it really, and you mentioned this in the intro, it really took us a long time to build slowly. So our growth in terms of sellers, if you look at it from 2015 to 2020, was a slow and steady progress. It really wasn't it almost starts to like compound, right? It really wasn't until the last 3 years where we started majorly growing the number of people on our team.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Sometimes people look at us and like, how did you get there? Well, it wasn't without some pain,
Yep.
some patience, right? And then progress over time. So I think those three things are important to remember. We really doesn't happen overnight, right? It took me 10 years to be an overnight success.
Right,
So
exactly.
um, all right. So now you've got people working for you and you're growing. How did you decide to do these acquisitions that you did? So you must have felt like things were going pretty well, right, in Denver, and you had however many sales reps working for you, all bringing in, businesses that for you to sell, and that was going very well. And then you had some conversations and said, "We want to grow bigger. How do we do it?" So tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the unique things about being a franchisee is growing through acquisitions very easy, right? Well, I shouldn't say very easy. It's easier than in other industries because the companies you're acquiring are usually exact copies of yours in different areas. So as we started to gain some momentum with our hiring and staff, we just started with expansion in Denver. So we bought out some fellow franchisees in Denver, expanded into the whole city, then started a little bit more throughout the state into the Colorado Springs area, Fort Collins area. Now, it made sense to us at the time because we're in the business of buying and selling companies, right? We have speeches and we proclaim this is a great growth model, is to grow by acquisition. It was interesting because we took a look back at ourselves probably around 18 and 19, and we said we're preaching growing by acquisition, but we're actually not doing it ourselves. So that was the impetus for us. And we started with, again, a couple transactions close to home, markets that we're really already operating in. And then over time, we did decide to expand into other areas outside of Denver and then outside of Colorado.
So how did you decide where to expand to? Was it mostly driven by what other franchisees were interested in selling their franchises?
So back to my research, right? Love to research. So we had decided in late 2019, early 2020 that we wanted to expand outside the state of Colorado. And we did a research study on the markets we thought were developing quickest for our industry. And we also looked at what could be a market that could consolidate. Where was there a lot of small players that we could maybe do some acquisitions, move them all together, and then we create this multiple effect. So we looked at a lot of different markets. We looked at markets in California. We looked at markets in Phoenix. We're originally from the East Coast. We knew we didn't want to go back there, so we took the East Coast off of it. But it was that combination of research and also, where do we want to be as owners? Like, where is a market we feel like we can thrive in, want to have a home in or spend time in? Because we knew it was going to be important to either relocate or spend a lot of time in these new markets to build that culture and build that team. So research first, and then pick those markets, narrow them down, was where do we want to be personally? So Dallas was the first area. Love Colorado. I do not love shoveling snow all winter long. So there was personally a drive to go somewhere warmer that we could spend the winters at. And so that's why, Dallas and Phoenix were on our list, Austin as well, as we also now operate on. So Dallas was our first acquisition because all of the numbers lined up, the potential, the growth opportunity, everything like that.
Wow. So, okay, you're growing, you're acquiring these companies, adding on new team members, and trying to keep the sales going, right? Keep everybody
Mhm.
motivated to sell. But then you said they're independent contractors, right? So it's kind of on them, right? Either they do or they don't. They don't get paid if they don't. But
Mhm.
you still sell and deliver, and I would imagine that your husband does as well. So talk to us about your role in sales and how it's changed over the growth of your company.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a metric in our company where we track the partner contribution to revenue, and which means how much revenue are we generating and closing in the business. And back in like 2018, it was like 85% or something like that, right? And that we knew that we wanted to decrease that percentage over time, because we knew if we ever wanted to exit, that was a risky prospect of the two of us generating most of the revenue. So over time, we had this balance of the player coach role, right? Where we would still be working on deals, but we would be coaching the team and developing the team. And little by little, it moved more towards coach and less away from player. So where we sit today, I'm not a player anymore. I don't bring in revenue to the company. I don't close deals. My role is coach and development of the team. My husband is very talented M&A advisor, so he picks and chooses some deals that we work on. But the real role we still do have in revenue development is rainmaking, relationship building, things like that. But we're not going to be in the weeds of every deal because we just don't have time. And to be honest, like, some of our team members now are way better players than at least I've ever been. My husband, like I said, is very good, but way better players and way better brokers than I ever was. I'm a relationship person. I'm that rainmaker role. I do podcasts like this, but to get into the weeds of the deal is not best suited for me.
Right.
So really, rainmaker and coach is where I sit. And then my husband sparingly can take on about 3 or 4 deals a year, but sits a lot in that coaching role. So
Right. So each of these independent contractors is responsible for getting their own deals, but it sounds like you're bringing in some business to redistribute back out as well. And I love that you are doing that rainmaking role, and I think that's a really important role for a founder. You are doing podcasts, and you also wrote a book. So tell us about your
yeah.
book.
Yeah. So as I'm out networking in the community and building relationships, the number one question I get asked is, how do I increase the value of my business? And I can't answer that question in like a 5-minute conversation or even over a coffee. So in 2019, or wait, no, 2020, actually, it was during the pandemic year, I decided to write the answer in a book, in a book form. So I wrote the book, Getting the Most for Selling Your Business. And it's all the tips, secrets that buyers are looking for and when they're acquiring a business, which ultimately increases the value that that business sells for.
Yeah, so that's a great lead generator, right? Because you can send that out to people. Maybe it's out in the bookstores locally in the areas where you have offices. People can hand that to someone else they know. So I think that is a great lead generator. But where would you say that your company gets most of the leads from?
Still networking and relationship development. So I think, and I just assume this based on our business and a lot of our clients, referrals and networking is still our number one lead generator in our business by far. So whenever we bring a new salesperson on, we teach them some tactics to get short-term leads, right? It can be door knocking, paying for leads, marketing activities, but we also teach them to focus on the long-term lead generation, which is relationships. So from day one, we have them involved in networking groups and community involvement. And we know that that's not going to pay off in leads today, right? But typically in our business, 2-3 years down the road, you get to be known in your marketplace. You get to be known as an expert. And as long as you're continuing to foster and nurture those relationships, you're going to get most of your business that way. So that's still by far our number one lead generation, is just being involved in the community. Over time, myself and some of our partners and longer term brokers, like, we've narrowed our focus. I'm very involved in entrepreneurial groups. So when I'm giving back or I'm involved in the community, I'm even involved, like, specifically in supporting small business owners, supporting entrepreneurs getting off the ground. Like, that's my focus. I have other brokers that are really focused in their religious sectors, others that are focused in their very, very, like, local community if they're in a small environment, but just really fostering those relationships and going deep in those relationships and those organizations.
I mean, it definitely is a long game. I mean, you could be networking and meet someone who says, "Oh, yeah, I was thinking about selling my business," right? But
Yeah.
typically, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, maybe in 10 or 15 years, I would want to sell my business," right?
Yeah.
So it is a long game, and then and sometimes you can help them get ready sooner, right? Sooner than they thought they might be able to get the value that they would want for their business, and that's why I love what you said, that you have a segment of your business that does nothing but help prepare people to be able to sell their business. And then when they're actually ready to sell their business, you have another division that does that. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that is, an excellent way to go. And I know many of the people listening to this are probably thinking, wow, yeah, I want to sell my business. So I want to learn more about that. So maybe you can pick up a copy of the book. We'll put it in the show notes for sure. It's called Getting the Most for Selling Your Business. And definitely take a look at that. But I want to hear just a little bit more for all our listeners about the acquisitions. And so, what did you learn that would be helpful to others who are thinking about making an acquisition as the primary way to grow their business? Because not only do you get a business that might have a physical space and some, assets, but you're really picking up the people, right?
Yeah.
And then that presents a whole nother myriad of things to, challenges and things to do. So, what are some of the key things that you would tell anyone who wants to grow their business through acquisition?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first I start with, what area do you want to grow? And usually there's three reasons that you're going to grow through acquisition. You're going to grow for people and stay in your same industry. You're going to grow for market share and maybe move into a different market. And instead of building and growing new market space like we did in Dallas, you just acquire something that's already established. And then the third reason you're going to grow through acquisition is if you want to add a different service or different product onto your business. So I usually tell people, scan through your P&L and anyone you're paying a lot of money to or receiving a lot of money from in terms of vendors or partners, that's probably a potential acquisition down the road. So that would be like the third reason, is expanding your products or services. So once you know your reason for acquisition, you can develop a fairly targeted list of who you would want to acquire. And then the key there again is patience. So not you mentioned this, Alice, like, not everybody is ready to sell at any given time. So one of my colleagues in the Transworld franchise that own the Austin offices, Austin, Texas, we originally started talking about an acquisition in 2018. And we just bought his office earlier this year in 2023. So if you know a target's right, but it's not the right time for them, you still form that relationship and you're just patient in the process, because you can't, and I've learned this in our business too, you're not going to force anyone to sell. Like your not offer is never going to, sometimes if you're really willing to overpay, which is a whole different story, but like you're not going to force somebody or incentivize somebody with money to sell their business if they're not ready to leave. So you just have to be patient. And then I also like people will shy away from, let's call them fixer uppers, right? So people will tend to, when they're buying a business, they'll poke holes in what's wrong in the business. And when you're acquiring for strategic growth, you need to shift your thinking about what's wrong with that business to what's the opportunity for your business. So, for example, we acquire a lot of franchise practices that are not doing well. Some have been completely not operational with one or less people in there. But we know we have a process, a system, a model, and a culture that if we can plug it in, we can turn that around very quickly.
Yeah.
And the benefit is we can usually acquire those businesses for a much lower price point than we would if we bought a business that was fully operational. So those are my keys, is like just narrow what you're going to acquire for. That will give you your targeted list. Be patient over time. It's a long game as well. And then, look for the fixer uppers. We've been really successful in that. And I think it's also really nice to know that I don't want this to come across as condescending, but like in a way, you're saving a business from going out of business. And that really is important to that owner, but also those people that are on that team.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great way to look at it. I do think, though, when you're acquiring, the important thing that you said is we have processes in place. We know how to do this. So we're going to come in and we're going to help those people do it. And then we're going to hire more people. I'm sure sometimes people are resistant and, they may have to exit. But I think that's just something really important to think about. Do you have the internal operations that are needed to support that acquisition? Because I have seen some pretty crazy, pretty large, crazy acquisitions, $50 million company merging with an $80 million company and two completely different separate sales teams. Of course, everything about the inner workings different, and nobody really knows how to bring it all together. So it can be kind of scary. So it is important to note that you have a way to literally either, you're not really merging when you're acquiring them because you're in charge, but you still have to merge all the process and the people and the training, and everything has to meld together to make it really work. So I think that's an important
Yeah,
piece of it.
it's important. And another thing too, I tell Alice people is like, don't change everything for like at least 6 months,
Right.
right? So even today, like when we've done, I don't know how many acquisitions we've done now. It's probably been 10 or 12, right? But even today, we don't go in and change everything on the team the first week. Like that's really scary for the team. It's a great way to lose people. So we try and learn that organization because we can make assumptions, even being in the same brand. We often know these people for years in advance of them joining our team. We can make a lot of assumptions about how their team runs and how their offices run, but really until we get into the weeds with them and ask questions and understand their way of doing things, we don't understand, and we don't understand what changes we would make would impact them. And sometimes I think like this Austin office we just acquired, they had an entirely different role than we don't have in our business brokerage process that I never would have thought of. And if I was moving too fast and just went, this is our process, this is what we're implementing, I would have missed that entire value add that we gained from that acquisition. So again, I guess the theme of this podcast is patience, right? But it's slowing down a little bit and learning the other operations too before we say, here's the way we do things, let's go, right? We usually give it at least 6 months of this adaptability where they're not completely on our systems, they're not completely on our processes. We're learning a little bit about each other. And then usually it's like I said, it's usually about 6 months, but we try and start at the beginning of every year. It's like January 1st is our full integration date. That's with the Austin acquisition we did in March. That's their full integration date is January 1st. So they got about 9 months. But the first year is really about adapting and not forcing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so where are you going next? I mean, you've got these new offices, and maybe you're going to hire some more salespeople for each of the offices. But what's coming next?
Yeah, we're really focused on the development of the offices. So Texas, like I mentioned, we've just done some major acquisitions. And we really just want to focus on supporting and growing this team. My husband and I actually relocated down from Colorado last year to support the team. Nevada is a newer market for us too. We were talking a little bit. They have some licensing issues in Nevada that prevented our growth quickly. But we have a partner in that organization that moved out there to run that office. So really just buckling down. We're probably not doing any acquisitions right now. We've got a lot on our plate. I also have a 2-year-old. So there's
Okay.
that stuff at home going on.
Changes your life, right?
Changes our life. But there's just, I mean, and even in Colorado, our foundation, there's just still so much opportunity we haven't harvested yet. And there's so many business owners we want to help, especially through that preparation phase. Our focus is just making sure we're serving the communities we're in at our fullest capacity.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Well, gosh, thank you so much for being on the show today. You've really given our audience a lot to think about, I'm sure. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, Jessica Fialkovich. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. Even if you spell my name wrong, it comes up. That's the fortunate part of having a last name as complicated as mine. And you can also visit. I'm most active in our Exit Factor company, so you can visit our website at exitfactor.com.
Wonderful. And if you do approach Jessica on LinkedIn, please be sure in your connection request to tell her that you learned about her and her company from Sales Talk for CEOs. Then she'll be much more likely to accept your connection request when she knows where it came from. Well, thanks again. I wish you all the best. It sounds like you have built an amazing culture for your company, your people that work for you, and just can't wait to continue watching you grow and thrive.
Thank you so much, Alice. It was great being on the show with you today.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.